town of Wellington began in 1893, located in central Washington. Though it was a small town known mainly as a fueling depot for the Great Northern Railroad, it would be remembered for the biggest train disaster in American history. In an effort to connect Seattle with other major cities in the east, the GNR took over 3 years to put in their new line. However, trains still struggled up the switchbacks until they hired engineer John Stevens. In 1900, John Stevens developed a plan to cut through the mountain and build a 2.6-mile tunnel, avoiding steep grades, but not the harsh winters. The GNR company knew the Cascades were the crux of their lines. In late February of 1910, they put their best man, John O'Neill, on the project of keeping all lines clear and moving. They had seen storms slow down their operations in the past and wanted to show the world the tunnel they had built, and snow removal operations were up for any task. They had no idea that impending doom lay before them. After receiving a foot of snow every hour in late February, snow removal operations failed. This left the express mail train and the passenger train stranded on the tracks for 9 days. After some spots received as much as 30 feet of snow, a thunderstorm hit. Thunder cracked, releasing a slab of snow 10 feet deep and a half-mile wide, rushing down the mountain. The avalanche slammed into the side of the trains and sent them and their passengers 150 feet down the mountain. John O'Neill and Wellington citizens assessed the destruction and looked for survivors. A makeshift hospital was built to care for the injured. Of the hundreds involved, only 23 survived. On March 1st, 1910, at 1 o'clock in the morning, 96 lives were lost. Today, over 100 years later, it is still the largest train disaster in American history. took the GNR 3 weeks to get back into full operation, and 3 months to clean up all the wreckage left from the avalanche. In an attempt to cover up the disaster at Wellington, the GNR decided to rename the town to Ty. Some years later, disaster hit the area again, and a fire burned down most of the town. After the consistent issues with storms shutting down the GNR's operations, they decided to build a new 6-mile tunnel through the mountain to avoid the steep grades. In 1929, the new tunnel was opened and all operations ceased in the town of Ty. The original town of Wellington was abandoned forever. It is now 2011, over 100 years after that disaster at Wellington. In an attempt to show you where Wellington once stood, I decided to try and show you exactly where the incident occurred. But Mother Nature had a different idea. Threats of a whiteout, a 120-inch base, and a big-ass bulldozer all pointed to a sign. A sign I should show you the power of an avalanche. Teton and I returned as the weather passed, seeing little reminders of the railroad that is still in use along the way. Snowshoed in following an old fire road, seeing the vertical slopes where the avalanche occurred, and then arriving at the spot where Wellington once stood. wife and I returned during the spring after the snow melted. I had heard rumors that if you got off the Iron Goat Trail and went down the hillside, you could still find debris from the disaster over 100 years later.
About that much snow. There's about that much snow.